All right, friends, welcome back to our online Bible study in Ephesians. How do you view yourself? How do you see yourself and your purpose in the world? All those things. How do you view yourself? As we get started in Ephesians chapter 3 today, I want to look at how Paul views himself and how Paul views himself might shed some light on how we can view ourselves also. So you're reading today verses 1 through 13. I'm going to really focus just on a couple verses in 1 through 8. Read all the rest of it. There are three ways in which Paul describes himself here. I want you to see these things. We're going to start at the end and work our way backwards. Verse 8, Paul says this about himself. To me, though I am the very least of all the saints, this grace, this gift, was given to me. So how does he see himself? He sees himself as the least of all the saints. Well, you may say the least of the saints is still pretty good, but he's not using the language of saints the way that we do too. He refers to all folks who are followers of Jesus, people in the church, as saints. So he's saying, I'm the least of all of us. Now, how could he say that about himself? Well, he knows how it is that he used to be. I mean, keep in mind, in the book of Acts, he's a guy who's hunting down Christians, bringing them to trial, approving of Christians being put to death. He is no longer that person. He has been made new into a new creation, brought into the new thing that God is doing. But he still recognizes, look, I'm the least of all of us. He recognizes that he himself is a sinner. Now, a sinner who has been removed from that old life, but that he recognizes how he got there, got to where he got to. God just saved him. He didn't get himself there. God just saved him. Back up a little bit. How else does he see himself? Of this gospel, I was made a minister. What's the gospel? It's the good news. If you go back one more verse, you'll see specifically what he's referring to. It's the mystery that the Gentiles are fellow heirs, that non-Jews are being brought into this also. He sees himself not only as a sinner, as the least of all the saints, but he also sees himself as a minister. Now, when you hear minister, don't think like a job, a vocation, the way that I'm a minister and maybe you see yourself not as a minister. That's not what he means here. What he means minister is that he has had something revealed to him, the gospel, the good news. It's like the curtain has been pulled back and he sees what God is doing in the world. And because he has been given the gift of seeing that, he is then given the mission of sharing that with other people. So he is a minister of this good news. It's not his job, it's a part of his identity. He's a sinner, but he's also a minister. He's a sinner who was saved and sent on a mission. Sinner, saved, sent on a mission. Back up even further, verse 1. For this reason, I, Paul, a prisoner of Christ Jesus, on behalf of you Gentiles. When you see prisoner, you initially think that he's referring to the fact that he is quite literally a prisoner. And he has been for a while. He was arrested in Jerusalem, taken to Caesarea, which is a port city. It's the first place we go to when we visit Israel. And then from there, put on a ship and taken to Rome. At some point in that imprisonment, probably in Caesarea or Rome, he writes this letter. So he is quite literally a prisoner, but he says he's a prisoner of Christ Jesus on behalf of the Gentiles. It has something to do with the fact that he's on this mission to share the good news with the Gentiles, and it has something to do with Jesus, that he's a prisoner also. I'm going to be honest with you, I have some more work and thought to do around that, but it's not just about his imprisonment to the Romans that makes him a prisoner, but in some way he's also captive to Christ. He's captive to this mission that Christ has for him to the Gentiles. So, how does Paul see himself? He sees himself as a sinner, saved and sent on a mission, who is captive to Jesus. He's not captive to the Romans. I mean, in a sense he is, literally he is, but he sees in a much larger sense, I'm captive to Christ and to the mission that he has me on. And a part of the mission that he has me on is that in this season, I'm imprisoned unjustly, but I'm imprisoned to the Romans. And even in the midst of my imprisonment, God's still working. At another point, he says, in another book, he says, like, I can be content in all things when things are good and when things aren't good. I can be content in all things because it is through Christ that I'm given strength. That I can endure all things through Christ. So that's how he sees himself. And it sheds some light on maybe how I should see myself. A sinner. Saved not because of anything that I've done, but because of his good gifts in my life. And sent on a mission. And captive to that mission. Captive, I want to be, if I'm captivated by, if I'm captive to anything, I want it to be a captive to Christ and the mission that he has in my life. It's a good thing to reflect on. How can you be honest about the sin that's in your life? How can you be honest about like the mission that he is sending you on, and honest about like what holds you captive? Like what are you captivated by? I may be pushing that last one a little bit too far. I'm just going to be honest with you about that. But when I look at Paul's self-understanding, his identity, I see those three things: a sinner, saved and sent on a mission that is captive to Christ. And as a captive to Christ, he can endure anything, any kind of hardship in life. So, friends, hope that you'll reflect on that. That's how Paul sees himself. How does that change, inspire how you see yourself? God bless you, friends. Keep what you're reading. I'll see you next time.